Okay, so you want to buy a football club. You picture the trophies, the roar of the crowd, your name in the history books, and maybe a healthy return on a globally beloved brand. But here's the strange part. There's an old joke in this sport. The way to make a small fortune in football is to start with a large one. And unlike most business jokes, this one is almost always true. Nearly every football club on earth loses money. Not once, not in a bad year, but structurally, year after year, by design. And yet the richest men on the planet, and some of its most powerful governments, are fighting each other to overpay for them. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how a football club makes money, why almost all of them lose it anyway, and why the real thing you're buying was never on the balance sheet at all. Let's start with the price list, because clubs come in tiers and they are wildly different purchases. At the bottom, a small lower league club can be yours for a few $1,000,000. It's cheap for a reason. You'll spend every one of those dollars keeping the lights on. In the middle sits the dream, a Premier League club, and this is where the numbers get serious. In 2021, a Saudi-led group bought Newcastle United for around £305 million. A year later, Chelsea sold for £2.5 billion up front, with another $1.75 billion promised in investment. And then there's the top tier, the trophy assets. Manchester United is valued at around $6.6 billion. Real Madrid, the most valuable club in the world, is worth roughly $9.5 billion. Though here's a twist, you can't actually buy Real Madrid at any price. It's owned by its own members, the fans. Some crowns simply aren't for sale. Okay, you've bought your club. Now, how does it actually make money? Revenue comes from three taps. The first and biggest is broadcasting. Television networks pay astronomical sums to show the games, and that money gets shared among the clubs. The second is match day, tickets, hospitality, the hot dogs, and the scarves. The third is commercial. Shirt sponsors, kit deals, the badge on the sleeve. Stack those three up high enough and you get a genuine giant. In the 2024-25 season, Real Madrid became the first football club in history to pull in more than $1 billion in a single year. In the entire history of team sport, only one other franchise had ever done it, the NFL's Dallas Cowboys. So, the money is real. Which brings us to the obvious question. If the revenue is this enormous, why does almost everyone lose money? One word: wages. Football has the most brutal cost structure in business. Because your most important assets are human, they have agents, and they know exactly what they're worth. At most clubs, player and staff wages swallow 60 to 70% of all revenue. European football's own financial rules now try to cap squad spending at 70%, which tells you how routinely clubs blow past it. And that's before transfer fees, the price you pay just to sign a player from another club. In 2017, Paris Saint-Germain paid €222 million to sign a single footballer, Neymar. Not his salary, just the fee to acquire him. And here is the trap that makes football different from every other business. To win, you have to spend. But spending does not guarantee you win. And if you don't win, you can be relegated to a lower division, where the television money collapses and your revenue falls off a cliff. So you spend more to avoid that, which shrinks your profit even further. It's a treadmill that speeds up the harder you run. In almost any other industry, you cut costs to survive. In football, cutting costs is how you get relegated and die. Some owners looked at this and decided to treat the club as a pure financial instrument. When the Glazer family bought Manchester United in 2005, they didn't use their own money. They used a leveraged buyout, borrowing hundreds of millions, and then loading that debt directly onto the club itself. The club now had to pay off the loans that were used to buy the club. Over the years that followed, United paid out well over £1 billion in interest and fees servicing that debt, money that could have bought players, and the fans have hated the owners ever since. You can run a club like a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet just won't love you back. So we've established it. As a business, owning a football club is a fantastic way to lose money, which finally brings us to the real secret of this entire industry. Because the smartest, richest buyers in the world are not confused. They know it loses money. That was never the point. You don't buy a football club to make money. You buy it to buy something money cannot purchase directly. Attention, legitimacy, reputation, soft power. Look at who owns the biggest clubs now. Manchester City is controlled by a member of Abu Dhabi's ruling family. Paris Saint-Germain is owned by Qatar. Newcastle United is owned by Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. These are not businessmen chasing a return. These are nation-states. And a football club is the most efficient reputation laundering machine ever built. For a few $100 million a year in losses, a country beams its name into billions of living rooms every single week. wrapped in the emotion of a sport people love. Critics have a word for it: sports washing. A club is a stadium bolted onto a public relations department for an entire country. But even this comes with a warning, and his name is Roman Abramovich. For nearly 2 decades, the Russian billionaire poured money into Chelsea and won everything. Then, in 2022, his home country invaded Ukraine. The British government sanctioned him overnight. His assets were frozen, and he was forced to sell the club he'd built. A football club can broadcast your reputation to the world. It can also become the exact spot where the world freezes your reputation solid. The same visibility that makes the asset priceless is what makes it fragile. So let's answer the actual question: how much do you make if you do this right? Scenario 1. You buy a mid-table club as a business. You'll fight relegation, you'll bleed cash on wages, and in a good year, you'll break even while praying your best player doesn't get injured. Modest, stressful, and one bad season from disaster. Scenario 2. You buy a trophy club as a billionaire or a government. On paper, you'll lose money almost every year. But the club appreciates like a rare painting. Newcastle's value jumped more than 50% after its takeover, and the influence you buy shows up nowhere on the income statement. You lose on the scoreboard of money and win on a scoreboard nobody else can even see. So if you decide to buy a football club, remember the one rule that separates it from every other asset on earth. Everywhere else, you buy the thing to make money. In football, you spend the money to buy the thing that money can't make. The trophies were never really the prize, the reputation was.